that's an idea. Now that's an idea. Now that's an idea. Now that's an idea.
Kia ora and welcome to Now That's an Idea. Today I am joined by Mr. Ashley Fisher of the Gisborne Chamber of Commerce. How are we?
Good, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. So, Mr. President, we've talked to a lot of politicians in the start of this podcast, and now it's all over. We've got our councillors, our mayor. So I thought it'd be a good time to talk about economics, from like a business perspective of what Gisborne's up to, and what kind of the chamber and business kind of sees going forward with the economy. But so, yeah, what do you think going forward is like the council's biggest challenges, especially from like a business lens?
And that's a good question. When it comes to business owners and the challenges they face doing business in the region, the council often comes up as an entity involved in part of those challenges. So doing business in the region often involves the council. So we need a council that is efficient in their processes, effective at delivering on time, so that we can go about doing what we want to do from a business perspective and not spend too much money getting our projects off the ground or getting the work done that we want to get done. So we understand that council's got a job to do. Their job is to make sure that when resources are being used or when buildings are being built, that it's done in compliance with the current legislation. And there pretty much lies the issue that currently it's really hard to know exactly where legislation lies because a lot of it's being looked at by central government and then local governments trying to form their own policies around how to apply the legislation. And then there's specific policies or legislation to specific industries. And it essentially creates a really challenging environment to know where we stand and to know where council stands when it comes to doing what we want to do as a region. That being said, when you've got new leadership, they'll have their new views around how those policies should be enacted and applied. And then you've got your people within council that are working day to day to try and apply the policies that are given to them. So, yeah, overall, it's really challenging to do that. And then for business owners to then kind of have an approach that they know that they can do what they want to do without spending too much money or wasting too much time, because time is money. And trying to do what we want to do in an environment where it's really hard to make a living already, given the challenges that we've got to deal with from the wider global economy and all that kind of stuff, and the weather and all sorts of things that affect how we make our living. So, yeah, the council comes up as a big entity. And when you're thinking about what's the most important thing that we want them to tackle, it's really just their processes so that they can do what they need to do and we can do what we need to do to get on with how we make a living. So they need to be really good, really efficient at processing resource and building consents, essentially.
Yeah, well, when I was talking to the people running for council, most of them were actually saying that they wanted council to be, less risk averse and kind of more enabling of business and progress, basically. So from the councillors' side, at least, it sounds like they are very keen to make it work better for everyone.
Mm.
But I think the key point is what you brought up is central government, they just changing the dial, council might be progressing with a housing policy plan and then all of a sudden the central government says, all right, stop what you're doing. And then so I can imagine businesses are just like, who am I listening to? What am I doing? So
Exactly.
it's the operational side that has to listen to central government that just makes things confusing.
Yeah, that's right. You've got business owners that want to get to work, and you've got councillors that say we want a not restrictive environment where people can get to work, and then something gets lost in the middle where the people trying to apply the rule that it stands come up with all sorts of roadblocks. So, it's a lot to work through. I think there's a lot of parties involved that are trying to find a way forward where people can work together. It's just hard to do in practice. And then there's all sorts of stuff around improvements in technology and the systems in place that people are using to process resource consents and increase transparency and stuff like that. So there's a whole lot of system upgrades that are being worked on within council around how people can see where their consents are at and the flow of information as well as that. So, there is work being done. It's not happening fast enough for people to really feel confident about going about their business. So yeah, you might think about, say, a property developer looking to, say, build some townhouses in Gisborne and close to the CBD. That ticks a lot of boxes from the council's kind of ideal plans for the future, because we want to revitalize our CBD. We want to bring people into the region. We want to have affordable housing. We want to have a place where young people can come and live and work. So we want to do those things, but then when we actually go about doing it, then they go, oh no, we've got to put the resource management plan on hold because of what central government's up to, or because of some other changes in policy that are happening around, wider than Gisborne. So that can be really challenging. And then when you've got the processes through democracy that we have to go through to get new councillors involved, then they've already caught up to speed before anything can happen as well. So really challenging, but doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And ultimately, I do believe it will achieve the outcomes we're looking for. We will get progress, and we'll be able to go to work eventually. It's just, it takes longer than we'd like.
Yeah. It's most things in life as well. You always you want things in fifth gear, but you got to start in first. But so you're talking with business people around Tairāwhiti of all stripes, because you're obviously, you run your own accountancy and you're the president of the chamber. How are businesses in general feeling? Like, are there bright spots somewhere? And then I don't know, like, is I imagine horticultures and kind of cattle and sheep farmers maybe feeling all right, but are there? What's the general vibe?
Yeah, so there's industries, as you say, that are doing better than previously. Following the cyclones, a lot of them were really heavily affected. A lot of damage to infrastructure, a lot of damage to crops, and to how they go about making their money. So most of them are pretty well recovered from that, and they're getting good prices for the commodities that they're selling if they're in sheep and beef or parts of horticulture. Yeah, outside of that, we've still got a challenging environment for forestry. Wood prices are largely out of our control, obviously. So we tend to just try to produce or at least harvest logs in a efficient way. But with the challenges around mitigating the impacts on the environment, that becomes really hard to do. So previously, we might have logged hills off logs off a hill in a lot cheaper way than we do now. So that means that we potentially can't make a living doing that anymore. So there's a whole lot of discussions happening between members of the Wood Council and the Gisborne District Council around a way forward so that they can harvest trees, still make a living, but not damage the environment. But then there's also the challenges around, if they don't harvest them, that also has impacts on the environment as well. So you can't just leave trees on the hill and forget about them, because in time they will fall down and they could still damage the environment and fill up your rivers and cause all sorts of issues from that. So lots of stuff that the council's working on around how to deal with land use in the future, whether it's around forestry or agriculture. But no real clear answers, but people are working out ways to still make a living in between. But outside of that, we have pretty good commodity prices for some of those products, so it's doing okay. There's also a push for trying to do increased manufacturing within region, trying to do value add, operations to the products that we produce. So the aim behind that is to increase employment opportunities and to make sure that as a region we're not putting all our eggs in small amount of baskets. So
what's happening
not
with
one
that?
basket.
There's a wood mill that was Japanese, but I think I got bought by the Australians. Is that ticking along?
So I understand that had investment to get it up and running. The degree of investment required is probably still in progress as far as it being fully operational. But there has been investment there, and there has been people hired and activity happen. They probably require a competitive market for their products so that they can actually make a living doing it as well, which is challenging. global factors like tariffs and stuff, it makes it really unclear about where they're going to be selling their products to. But they're giving it a shot, which is at least positive for some form of value add in Gizzy. I mean, I know a lot of people are talking about manufacturing of food products over and above the raw commodities that we produce. So say if you're growing vegetables, maybe turning some of those vegetable products into soup products or something like that. We've done that in the past. Some of those operations have been closed down. We're looking at what we can do to get them back up online. So there are other things we do to make money in this town. There are actually a lot of businesses that fly under the radar that actually add a great deal of innovation and world-leading producers of products that you wouldn't even know about. I think we had a BA5 a month ago with Pioneer Seeds, and they ship seed products around the world, and they produce, these highly efficient, robust products that grow in any environment and produce feed and grain products for the world. Next time you're eating a bowl of cornflakes, you might actually be surprised to learn that corn might not have been grown here, but the seeds came from here. And gets to all four corners of the globe. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that because even though Tairāwhiti and Gisborne is, relatively a small place, there's like kind of little secret businesses and stuff going on. Like when I was learning about Poltron, they're like a massive kind of like global player in like this. I don't even know what it is. It's like a instead of steel beams, they're like made of fiberglass or
composite
something.
products.
Yeah, they're
that's
like
right.
in Saudi Arabia and the States and stuff.
So they build products that are different than your standard building products, and they're more efficient when it comes to handling a rough environment. So, iron, for example, is corrosive, and if you put it in sand and wind and water, it tends to not last very long. But if you're using a carbon fiber composite material to support your concrete in an environment that has those rough challenges, then it'll last longer and it'll give you a superior building product. So that's really cool stuff that they're doing. There's some really, really, really bright people behind those organizations that help design and find markets around the globe for those products. So and that comes from little old Gizzy, which is fantastic. And then even when we look at what we do from a core commodity-based product, we still do that really efficiently and using some pretty cutting-edge techniques as well. So, there's a new laser-powered weeding machine at Leader Brand that essentially zaps weeds when it goes through the paddocks so that you don't have to use as much spray, which is good for the environment and good for us as consumers. So, there's all sorts of cool things happening within the businesses that fly under the radar because they're pretty humble being Kiwis. They don't make a song and dance about themselves. It's actually quite hard for me to get members of the chamber to kind of talk about themselves and promote themselves because most people just want to go about how they make money. I'm, pretty humble. So it's pretty cool. But at the same time, I want to shout what we do because I think it's pretty cool and I think it needs to be supported. There's so many products that we could produce within region, but we buy from overseas because there's just a lack of maybe confidence around some of the investment in R&D. So we need to be a bit braver when it comes to investing in ourselves and to backing ourselves to do some of the things we know we can do. But I get really kind of inspired and it helps me do my day job as well.
Yeah. So what actually is, in economics you have competitive advantage, like a certain region or whatever. And I think it started with England and Portugal where they realized England was really good at making, like weaving rope and stuff like that. And then Portugal was good at making port. And so I think they had the first ever international trade deal where they're like, well, how about you just make lots of port and we'll make lots of like rope and we'll exchange the goods and we can have even more than we would if we just tried to do everything ourselves. So what's Gisborne's competitive advantage? Like, are we stuck with trees and lettuce?
Yeah, so
there's anything wrong with trees and lettuce.
There's nothing wrong with them. No, that's right. We have a great environment for growing food. That's proven, and that's why we've built this city on that basis. Long before the hills and the coast were covered in trees, sheep and beef came from those hills, and we fed the world. I think, the stats like in 1960, New Zealand had the best GDP per capita in the world. So, and a lot of that was driven from those core commodities that we do. So we do that very well. However, we don't just have to do that. We can do other things. We can obviously add value to those commodities, but yeah, we also have a lot of bright people. And I think ultimately our best competitive advantage is people, because if we think outside the box and we come up with the next Zero or the next other tech tycoon that takes over the world and does something completely different that makes us the Silicon Valley of the Southern Hemisphere, then that would be great too. And I'd be really keen to support that. So yeah, I think ultimately it's our people, but yeah, doesn't mean to say we can't grow good food here as well.
Yeah, no. And hey, if the world's pretty crazy right now, like there's nothing wrong with having a good supply of food in your own backyard.
That's right. And yeah, if there's any way to kind of calm stuff down, it's give people a feed and then they might come to their senses. So yeah, I think maybe just a little bit more measured consideration with a nice meal and talking amongst people that we have a lot in common with is always going to be a good thing.
Mm. So what is how is the Gisborne economy actually doing? Because I know we're actually quite negative on a lot of fronts in terms of I think we've got like high unemployment. We've also got like
Yeah.
a lot of young people. Are we actually doing all right, or are we still kind of limping along, or is it just kind of a total mixed bag?
Yeah, it is a mixed bag. There are people doing okay and there are people really battling. So we need to find ways to lift the people that are battling into a position that they can, achieve what they want to achieve and thrive. So, yep, high unemployment. We need more job opportunities so that people can get into work. And to do that, businesses need to be able to make the investments and go about the things they want to do so they can hire people. And when you've got delays in regulation and delays in processing of the things that businesses need to do so that people can get to work, then that obviously makes that harder. So that's what we're going to try and solve. I've had cases where MSD has talked to me about jobs that they've filled with bigger businesses, but those bigger businesses are going to maybe sometimes have to let those people go because they can't go and do the investment or the project that they want to do because of resource consent or applications through basically red tape that held up them being able to start work. So we need those things to move quickly so that people can get into work, and then we can reduce those unemployment figures. Unfortunately, it's not rocket science, it's just hard.
Yeah. What are those kind of entry level jobs in Gisborne? Because I would imagine most people unemployed are not like doctors or engineers or anything like that. So like people on unemployment kind of need jobs they can step into without having too much training. So is there some kind
Yeah.
of
Well, you want opportunities where people can learn on the job. I think that helps people then have a purpose, but also advance themselves. Nobody wants to break their back for the rest of their life and then not have anything to show for it. People want to be able to upskill. So there are good training pathways within civil engineering, forestry, those kind of construction type roles where people are making roads or building water supply systems, where you literally start at the bottom as a labourer with a crew and you get showed the ropes, so, where to put the cones in the first instance. And then from there, you upskill. And some of the great examples we've seen over the last 12 months, I think it was Curry Construction. They had, 10 of their guys that had come from MSD, basically on the welfare, and now have got training pathways, and some of them are qualified operators of pretty high end technical machines where, they're operating on something that's worth $500,000 and, doing some pretty serious but awesome work when it comes to the improvements that it's adding to our region. So yeah, there are pathways. It's just a matter of making sure that we are getting those pathways out there and then we're getting those projects happening so that people can get to work, because you can't pay somebody to sit home and still expect to make a profit.
and instead of paying them to, hopefully look for work, they're actually putting money back into the world.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, there are opportunities there. Are there enough? That's a tough question to answer. I'd probably say no. We do need to to do more. We need to make more investments. We need to grow the economy by kicking off these projects that we want to do, and giving those employment opportunities to people. But ultimately, it's got to involve business. It's got to have people as part of that equation, and businesses are pretty good at delivering. They just need a regulatory environment that enables them to do it.
Yeah. So have you got any kind of taking off your like serious work hats and stuff like that? Have you got any like ideas? Because that's an idea. Have you got any like ideas that you would like to see happen in Tairāwhiti? Like me personally, I want boatloads of cycleways and like a kick-ass downtown. Like, I want a city square. Like I want to like cut off Low Street and just like make that into a place people can like hang out, pedestrianize it. Have you got any things that you just like want to see happen?
What would be mine? I mean, yeah, I also share those visions for a vibrant city, because you know that I enjoy sitting there having a glass of wine or a beer or something as much as you do. So that's cool. But no, I think a big quick fix that would solve some of those problems would be these empty or vacant buildings being put to use. There are what they call the Filthy Five, where those have had a whole bunch of legal challenges and absent ownership, to put it nicely. So
He's in jail, right? He's in jail.
Yeah, that's right. So that I understand that the council is working through a process to get control of those buildings, or at least put them back to a position where they can sell them to an interested party that could develop them. But my perspective is that if they do that, and those buildings have people in them, that's going to do great things for Gizzy. It's not too hard. They're already there. They're just underutilized and probably under cared for. There might be a great deal of structural work required, or they might need to be bowled entirely and something new built there. But whatever the case, progress is better than just leaving them there falling to bits. And I think if they could do that, that would make a big change for the CBD in particular.
Do you know what's going on with the Masonic Hotel?
Yeah, so I think that was part of those 5, and there is some progress being made on the council basically resolving the ownership challenges, and then if possible they will get it to market and somebody else will be able to do something cool with it.
Yeah, because I think what I heard was that it was like the guy's in jail for like trafficking meth, but then like the actual building's like in the name of his parents or something like that. So it's complicated.
I don't want to speculate. I'm sure that there's court records that we could filter through to find those details, but ultimately I don't really care about what's happened in the past. I care about what they do with it in the future. And the best thing that could happen is that those buildings are either put to use or removed so something else cool can go there.
Yeah. I know. I've got visions of like apparently it's got like a beautiful restaurant downstairs where it used to be, like, because the Queen stayed in the Masonic. Oh,
that's right.
She didn't actually stay there. I don't think she just popped in and used the loo. But
okay.
That's historic.
Yeah. I mean, I recall seeing the entranceway in the elevator once when I went in there when people were still living in there many years ago. But yeah, I hear that there's really nice bars and stuff inside the facility, but all probably covered in pigeon poo now.
Hopefully that's the worst of it.
Yeah, hopefully. But yeah, whatever happens, my kind of view is that as long as it's put to use, that's going to help lift the rest of the region or the people around it. So, you'll feel better about walking down the main street when there's buildings with people in them rather than just empty and falling down. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks so much for being on the show and giving that business perspective, because I think it
No
gets
worries,
missed
mate.
sometimes.
Yeah, no, I think ultimately the council has a job to do and they will do it. It's my job to call them out if they're not. If any of our chamber members are unhappy with the performance of the council, then we will talk about it and we will bring attention to it. It's a difficult job, but it's got to be done. Progress, not perfection, I think is the best way to approach it. Keeping an open dialogue, making sure that we're not attacking people, but just policy and making sure that the policies are effective, and then we can deliver for our region. So, yeah. Other than that, the chamber obviously cares about just business thriving. So there's always all sorts of networking opportunities that we do, and businesses find great ways to work together amongst themselves at those networking opportunities. So, if you want to join the chamber, go for it. And
You've had
come
things
along
at
and tell
the
us
you've
what
had
you're
things
about.
at the brewery. You get out there.
Yeah, we do. We go to all our members' businesses, and they tell us about what they get up to. They tell us about what's important to them. They tell us about the challenges that they're facing in doing business, and then we try to find solutions working together. But yeah, that's why I say our best resource is our people ultimately, and what we achieve is because of them. And where we could go is pretty limitless because they'll come up with all sorts of amazing, cool things.
Tairāwhiti's got ideas. You just have
Yep,
to go to
that's
the
right.
pub.
Now that's an idea.